Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Science Dispatch podcast. Great to be with you as always. I'm Cameron English. That handsome young man over there, Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. How are you, Dr. Chuck? What's going on?
I'm great. It's a beautiful day. Good to go.
Well said.
Well, shortly said. Succinct, if nothing else.
Terse. I like it. I'm fine. Let's do this. Okay. Our article for today is one you wrote just a little while back called Eating Our Way to a Better Old Age. Here's the introduction and then break this down for us. So you write, everyone wants to live longer and better. As advocates like the Maha Moms push for a shift from simply avoiding disease to preserving strength, sharpness, and emotional well-being, a new Nature Medicine study asks a timely question. Can what we eat in midlife help us age healthily? Okay, what's the answer here?
Maybe. Thanks for talking, viewing, and tuning in.
Have a good one, everyone. We'll be back next week.
So they begin by talking about health spans, which is that length of your life when you remain healthy and can do the things you want to do. And ideally, with the optimized health span, you die as Governor Rockefeller did in the middle of sex. And that's the end of it. Now, whether nutrition will get you there or not is a different issue, and it was not addressed directly by the study, to be fair, but it was an interesting study. One of the strengths of the study is that they looked at dietary patterns. They didn't look at individual components of the diet, but the weakness, of course, comes from the fact that the dietary patterns comes, once again, from a food frequency questionnaire, so there's always a little bit of mischief in filling out one of those forms. They made use of two long-term longitudinal databases involving nurses and physicians, other health professionals. So this was a group of people that theoretically, when it comes to healthy eating, knew better and theoretically had the wherewithal to eat better. And they looked at a variety of diets, and they decided their goal of healthy eating was arriving at the age of 70 without any of the important chronic illnesses. Among the chronic illnesses that are actually impacted by diet would be coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis in general, diabetes, obesity, if we're counting that as a chronic illness. Those are all things that are going to be related to eating and metabolism. Multiple sclerosis, certain incidents of strokes are not going to be as heavily influenced by your diet, so the results kind of varied. So they were looking across that population to see which group of 70-year-olds made it to the point where they had no chronic illnesses at that age, and then they looked at various patterns of diets. And what they ultimately found was that if you ate what's called the Healthy Eating Index, which is a variation on in the My Plate diet that's presented, that 14% of the people that were strict adherents to that diet made it to 70 without any
how many?
Chronic illness.
How many people made it out of that group?
14%.
14%. Okay.
Right.
And that's worth a press release?
Oh, this is not a press release. This is an 8 or 9 page article.
Right. Well, right, but that's worth promoting, I suppose. Sorry.
Well, that's where it began. And then, the fact that they didn't bring up very much is that they were looking at the people that were most adherent to that pattern versus the people that were least. If you were least adherent to that pattern, 6% of us made it to 70. So the impact of the diet was even less than the number that was offered up. I think that the other point that they make in the study, and this is really getting to the issue of lifestyle versus simply nutrition, is that when they looked at the socioeconomics of those people that were adherent to these wellness diets, the wealthy were 200% more likely than the poorest of these people to make it to 70 without any of these chronic illnesses, because they had the wherewithal, the money, the kitchen, the transportation, the storage, to eat a healthy diet on a routine basis.
How do you, and I haven't read the paper, so I don't know, but how do you control for those kind of variables at all? Like, how do you control for the fact that someone's got a top of the line refrigerator that keep your produce at the, okay, so that you don't know, right?
No, well, the way they adjusted was based on the socioeconomics of the census group that, where you were in. And that's not a bad, census group is not a bad measure of income. Okay. And it's probably not a bad measure of having the wherewithal and resources to carry out a nutritious diet. But what they basically found was that a nutritious diet as part of a healthy lifestyle, I know, but where have we heard that before? That includes not smoking, not drinking, exercising, will allow a group of us to make it to 70 without any chronic illness. Now, there's a few caveats that we need to put in. Number one, the greatest driver of chronic illness is age. Of that cohort, of that people over the 30 years that had made it to, that 14% that over 30 years had made it to 70 without illness. Within 5 years of that, by the time they turned 75, that cohort had dropped to a 5%. Half of them had become ill over the next 5 years. As we age, we just develop illnesses. There's, despite what goes on in Silicon Valley and with the tech bros, no one's going to be getting out of this alive. And we are going to continue to develop chronic illnesses over time, which is kind of an interesting take when you hear Secretary Kennedy and his friends talk about the increasing incidence of chronic illness in America. Part of that is because we found ways for people with chronic illness to live longer. Diabetes is a perfect example. Diabetes in 1920, before the onset of the use of insulin, was essentially lethal in childhood. And today, the problem with people with type 1 diabetes is that they have problems with their vision and problems with their coronary arteries and problems with the nerves because they're 60 and 70 years old and they've been living with this disease for 60 years. So it muddles the issue a little bit. In any case, what they found was that if you follow a healthy diet, that you have a significant chance of having fewer chronic illnesses. Of course, the caveat, and then again, this healthy eating index that they have for the people that that golden 14%, they were at about 70 on the index, and the average American diet is somewhere around 58 or 59 on the index. So a lot of us are not going to be making it to 70 without chronic illness.
I've heard you say recently on an episode of the show that pretty soon there's going to be a pill version of Ozempic or Wegovy or whatever. And over time, we've seen the same trend, is that medicines get cheaper. You find, easier delivery methods, right? They're not injections. They're not these complicated infusions. It's just something that you pop out of a blister pack and swallow. So what I'm asking is medicine going to get good enough to keep so many people alive and relatively healthy that this sort of advice is going to become more or less moot? It's not that it's wrong. It's just that, like if someone is diabetic, we can prescribe them insulin and any other number of prescription drugs. As I said, we have the GLP-1s for weight loss now. You know what I'm asking? Like, are we just going to get to a point where you don't have to tell people to eat bean sprouts and brown rice anymore?
Well, that's kind of political, social issue. The fact is that when the cost of healthcare is shared by everyone. This is going to come as a hard surprise for everybody, but the government does not pay for our healthcare, nor do the insurance companies. We pay for it. We pay through our taxes. We pay for it through our, payments to the insurance companies. These companies and the government do not fund it. So in some senses, if we had more healthy lives, it would cost society less than we could use those resources and money for other things. I suspect that may not happen to the degree that we might like, because as you watch the middle income countries develop into higher income countries, you start seeing the onset of many of these chronic illnesses, and they would like to say that they're due to them incorporating the Western diet, but I think that at the same time that they incorporate the Western diet, they also incorporate the ability to sit on the couch and watch television for a much longer period of time, and to have a few more drinks than usual, and find other ways to spend their times besides, hard physical labor, or whatever it takes to be one of the blue countries that have people living for 900 years.
I don't know that I'd want to live for 900 years. That's a lot of extra work, a lot of extra everything. Okay, well, as we wrap up here, what's the takeaway? What should people know based on this the study you're reporting on?
Well, I think that the strength of the study comes from the fact that they're beginning to look at patterns and stop looking at nutritional elements. They didn't say anywhere in there that eating red meat was bad and that eating kale was good. But they did say that a plant-forward diet, and they gave several different ones to look at, made a difference. They also said that the diets varied for different individuals. People say with hypertension, it would do much better with a diet that was lower in salt, for instance. So there is no one size that fits all for the answer to the healthy diet. But sadly to say, Mom remains correct again that, the diet is part of lifestyle. It is not the sole factor, and that's probably why that magic pill is never going to be as successful as they promote it to be.
Very good. Well, once again, that article is called Eating Our Way to a Better Old Age by our very own Dr. Chuck Dinerstein. That is at acsh.org. If you go up and click the subscribe tab and give us your email, we'll send you the articles we publish. The ones you read are the ones we usually talk about. You can follow us on social. It's at acsh.org on X. I'm at CamJEnglish. Chuck accepts emails. He'll get back to you when he can, because he loves to hear from people. Correspondence is what he lives for. Isn't that right?
Please, somebody write to me. I'm getting lonely here.
All right. Thank you for joining us as always. We'll see you next time.